These are not just mellow cover songs of what was originally a mellow song. I want there to be a stark contrast to the original. So the original had to either be fast and upbeat, heavy, loud, obnoxious, and then this version is the 180 of that.
Hey, what's happening? This is Tim Foreman with Switchfoot, and you're listening to My Weekly Mixtape right here with Brian Colburn.
What is going on, friends? Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape. I'm your host, Brian Colburn, and I want to set the stage for this evening. It's a Monday night. It's a little after 9 o'clock. Kids are in their room getting their homework done, getting ready for bed. The missus is downstairs watching one of her favorite shows, and I'm in the studio prepping this episode. And I had all intentions of making this a randomized episode where I'd spin the wheel and whatever topic came up, I would run with. However, when I sat down to hit record, an idea kind of came to me because I'm sitting in the studio that's lit only by the light of my Rodecaster Duo board and my screen and a tiny lamp in the back corner. So it's got a very mellow, chill vibe in the room. And the look and feel immediately gave me deja vu. And that deja vu was from my college radio days. My first show ran from 7 to 9 in the mornings on a Monday. Not the ideal slot for a college radio program, but it was the slot they had available, and I was desperate to start doing some on-air work. So I took the slot. My second semester, I moved to the 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. slot on a Monday night, which was cool. I liked that slot. It was a fun slot to be on. And the gentleman that ran the show before me always turned all the lights off in the studio and just vibed with the light of the board. And when my co-host didn't show up, because he had a class that ran kind of close to the start time of the radio show, and some weeks he just couldn't make it, I would kind of live with the vibe that the DJ before me set, which was just kind of this board lighting the room. It was very mellow and chill. And you know the Bangles song Manic Monday, I started doing a type of episode in college that I called Mellow Mondays, where all I would do was dig through my CD books. Yes, I'm dating myself with that reference, but I brought 2 100-disc books with me, and I would flip through and I would find all mellow songs to play for 2 hours. Just kind of run with that vibe, kind of put my feet up on the desk, take it back a little bit, and do the antithesis to what everyone considered to be Manic Monday. And because I'm sitting here on a Monday night in that similar time frame, kind of gives me that same vibe, that same feeling that I had back then. So I think tonight, instead of randomizing an episode and running with something on the fly, I'm going to go with this Mellow Monday episode. But there's another step to that. Because earlier today, I was rocking out to my cover song playlist, which I call Under the Covers. Yeah, okay. And a couple of songs came up that were mellow versions of songs that normally aren't mellow. And now that I'm thinking about it, that is a perfect playlist opportunity. Because there are a ton of cover songs that fit this mold. So think about it. You have a song that's normally upbeat, fast, heavy, and I'm talking about all genres here. This could be a dance song, could be a pop song, could be metal, punk, whatever the case. But you strip it down and you slow the song down, and it completely changes the meaning of the song. It exposes the lyrics and adds a vulnerability that isn't in the original. Maybe it is, but when it's stripped down to its core, you feel that vulnerability a lot more. Some of them are songs that when you listen to the regular version, they give you a certain feeling. But then when you hear it stripped down, dare I call it an emotional gut punch. And there are a few that are immediately coming to my mind right now that I think are going to be perfect for this. But before I get into those, when I do these randomized topics that I mentioned at the top of the show, they're all based on you, the fellow mixtapers, the people who listen week in and week out, And I need those suggestions in order to make this wheel as challenging and fun as possible for A, me recording it, and B, you listening. So if you have a topic idea that you want to hear me mixtape or playlist on this show, please send it my way, myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on social media at myweeklymixtape. You can also visit the contact page at myweeklymixtape.com and send a message that way. Or you can join the fellow mixtapers over at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. I've set it up so that it's free to join and chime in, but there are other tiers if you want to get early access to episodes, become a guest on a future episode. I've tried to set it up in a way where you can be a part of the community and it doesn't cost anything. But if you want to support the show a little extra, I'm trying to do what I can to make that possible. Now, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever it is you listen, I ask that you click the subscribe button. And if there's a way to leave a review, be it 5 stars, thumbs up, whatever the system is that you're listening on, please do so. Leave a comment about the show. That truly helps My Weekly Mixtape slay the algorithm beast and show up to other people that are looking for music talk shows and music podcasts. And last but not least, if you want to explore the entire catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes, there's well over 160 and counting. You can do so over at myweeklymixtape.com. So how do I begin this Mellow cover songs playlist? Now, I definitely want to emphasize here, these are not just Mellow cover songs of what was originally a Mellow song. I want there to be a stark contrast to the original. So the original had to either be fast and upbeat, heavy, loud, obnoxious, and then this version is the 180 of that. And I think the first song that comes to my mind, the original is an album opener, and it's heavy, and it's loud, and it changed the face of music. But the cover is a haunting, gender-flipped, mellow version that makes the hair on my arm stand up every single time I hear it. And the song is Smells Like Teen Spirit, originally recorded by Nirvana. But the version I'm going with is Tori Amos's cover, which was originally the B-side to her Crucify single. You see, kids, back in the 90s, you'd get the album and there'd be a ton of great songs on it. But then sometimes there were these hidden gems, these B-sides, that would make you go out and buy the CD single. Or even worse, in the case of Pearl Jam, when you had to get Yellow Ledbetter, you originally had to get the import single before it caught such fire here in the US that they did put out a US CD single of it. So sometimes import CDs had the best B-sides you could find. But Tori Amos's version of Smells Like Teen Spirit, the original is so loud, and like Weird Al did in Smells Like Nirvana, harped on the fact that the lyrics were sang in maybe not the most intelligible lyrics. However, Tori broke all that, and you can definitely understand the lyrics to this song in her version. And it really draws attention to what Kurt Cobain was trying to put across in the original track. You take a line like, "I'm worst at what I do best, and for this gift, I feel blessed." In the original, sure, when you're rocking out to it, you got the bass line underneath, you sing along with it, that's all well and good. But when you strip it down to just Tori's voice and a piano, those words hit in a completely different fashion. And I think that mindset sets the tone for what I'm looking to put across in these 10 songs. If you haven't heard this version, again, it is on the Little Earthquakes Deluxe Edition. You don't have to go seeking out the Crucify single to find that B-side. However, I have to admit, there was some kind of dopamine rush when you finally stumbled across that CD single. That doesn't quite hit the same when you stumble across it in a 2.3 second YouTube search. There were times I would hit up 5 or 6 indie record stores before I would stumble across that CD single with the song I was looking for. I remember another one being Alanis Morissette's slowed down version of You Ought to Know that I talked about on the 10 acoustic versions that reinvent the original episode I did a while back here. When I first stumbled across that ironic single, I thought I struck gold. I still remember where I was. It was up in Rutland, Vermont at the Diamond Run Mall. I was with buddies up there visiting. I actually said, hey, maybe you guys have it here because we're closer to Canada. Like that's, I remember that day and just finding that single. And it was so cool to be able to listen to a crystal clear recording on CD in my buddy's car versus the cassette tape version I had at home, which was from the VHS version that I recorded that Grammys on. Going on YouTube, typing it in and it popping right up doesn't quite hit the same way, but that's just me. All that said, Tori Amos's cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit is one that just grabs you by the heartstrings and holds on and sucks you in. You get lost in that performance. And I feel like that's what I'm going to lean into for the follow-up track. A performance that's just so unique that it actually challenges the original. And the original is one of the most iconic songs of the 80s and is featured on the best-selling album of all time, Michael Jackson's Thriller from 1982. And I'm going with the song Billie Jean. Now, I'm sure a lot of you out there immediately went, I know exactly which song you're talking about. Chris Cornell's cover from the Carry On album. Oh my God. The first time I heard this, I was stunned. Within seconds, the hair on my arm stood up. Because you saw the track listing on the cover of the album, but there are plenty of songs that share the same song title. So when that hits, and he begins with She Was Born Like a Beauty Queen on a Movie Scene, I immediately knew what it was. And within seconds of the way he delivered that opening line, I was hypnotized. And I had no idea why he was doing this and where he was taking it. Michael Jackson's opening has the beat, the bass line, the song kind of builds you up before there's even the first bit of lyrics. Chris's version just punches you right into the words, right into the vibe. And I immediately knew the song. Took me one line to figure out, oh my God, this is a cover of Michael Jackson. You have my attention. Where are you taking me? And for the next few minutes, I just sat back listening to this transcendent performance. I mean, let's be honest. Chris Cornell has one of the most distinct voices, maybe in rock history. And the way he handled this song was both bold and challenging to both the listener as well as him as an artist. Because you're taking a song that is universally known and beloved, and you're completely reinventing it as your own. This could have flopped hard. And maybe for some Michael Jackson fans, it did. But for me, this is a Chris Cornell song that just happens to be a tribute to Michael Jackson. When that chorus kicks in and he hits the, she's just a girl who claims that I am the one, and he holds that note, you feel it in your soul. Like, this is a way to just command. Honestly, the Carry On album is fantastic. But the cover of Billie Jean stole the show on the album as far as I'm concerned. Yes, it's a cover song. The rest of the songs are great. But my God, this was something on a completely different level. Now, I don't remember what year this was, but maybe within a year or two of the song being released, David Cook was a contestant on American Idol, and he did this version of the song. And they did not try to cover it up. Ryan Seacrest said, and now with Chris Cornell's version of Billie Jean, here's David Cook. And he performed this song. And it was followed by Randy Jackson, Paula Abdul, and Simon Cowell gushing over David Cook's reinterpretation of the original Michael Jackson track. I don't think the judges actually knew or heard Ryan Seacrest mention the Chris Cornell connection. It obviously wasn't trying to be done disingenuously because Ryan Seacrest acknowledged it before the song even started. How the judges didn't know this was definitely a true ball drop by the American Idol production staff. But all that aside, it did bring more light to the song to an audience that maybe wasn't the biggest Chris Cornell fans at the time, because American Idol was aimed at a completely different demographic. And if by some osmosis, people hearing this version made them look up Chris Cornell's version and discover Chris's music and go down that rabbit hole, then it's all well and good. I think it's a great thing. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, any chance we can get to put a spotlight on Chris's masterful take of this song needs to be taken, like I am doing right now on this show. So there was no way I was doing an episode like this and not talking about his version of Billie Jean. Now, for the next one, I did bring up the whole American Idol thing, and that immediately brought to my mind another artist who made his name through the American Idol channels, however, went on to do bigger and better things beyond the world of reality TV show singer. And that would be Adam Lambert, who not only forged his path through his original music and stints on Broadway, he also became the singer of this little-known band called Queen. And the fact that Queen double billed it as Queen plus Adam Lambert for all of their subsequent tours and releases, they did a live album and Blu-ray, there's no denying Adam Lambert's star power, even when you remove him completely from the American Idol universe. Now, that being said, during the 41st annual Kennedy Center Honors, he delivered a performance of a song that not only was I not expecting, it stopped me in my tracks, similar to the way that Heart's Stairway to Heaven stopped me in my tracks when they performed it on the Kennedy Center Honors. And I'll be real here. A lot of times on the Kennedy Center Honors, I watch it and a performance happens and I go, oh, that was nice, that was well done, and I kind of move on to the next thing. But there were certain moments like Heart's Stairway to Heaven and Adam Lambert's take on Cher's Believe, where I immediately said, that's a hit in and of itself, cover or not. And maybe through some ESP or something, I don't know, Adam Lambert heard me telepathically, because pretty much 1 year to the performance, he decided to release it as a studio single. And Believe from Cher is one of those songs that, depending on who you ask, is a hit or miss. This is far removed from the I Got You Babe era of Cher. This is also far removed from the 80s Desmond Child era of Cher. I Found Someone, If I Could Turn Back Time, kind of the hair metal version of Cher, if you will. This was the pop, club, dance, diva era of Cher. And in a way, this is one of the songs that shaped the next era of music, and maybe the next decade or two, as it was one of the first hit songs that truly incorporated auto-tune as a vocal tool. If you told me what were the first two songs you heard with auto-tune vocals, I could immediately say to you, Cher's Believe and Only God Knows Why by Kid Rock. The first two songs that kind of stopped me as I'm listening to them going, what is with this computer-esque effect on their vocals? And in both the case of Only God Knows Why and Believe, it is kind of the signature staple of that song. So much so that, at least for Believe, when Me First and the Gimme Gimmes covered it, doing a punk version on their album Are We Not Men, We Are Diva, they even use a section where they put the auto-tune on his vocals as like a hat tip to the original, because it's so kind of ingrained in the song's DNA. Adam Lambert doesn't do that, though. If anything, this version is Adam Lambert tipping his cap to Cher's 80s rock side, because he turned her pop dance club song Believe into an 80s power ballad. If Cher had recorded this song during her 80s era, as Adam did it for his cover. It could have easily slid onto any of her albums in that period and probably would have been a hit during that time. So I don't know if that was the intent, but his version makes you pause and listen to the lyrics. And his performance, whether you're watching the live version or listening to the studio version, it's epic. It's the only way I can describe it. Powerful, emotional. Some of the vocal runs he hits in it, you would think might be a little acrobatic for the tune, but given the arrangement, it fits so harmoniously in with what's happening musically that it's just perfect. So there's a 2 for 2, I guess, on the American Idol front, given I mentioned David Cook for Chris Cornell's Billie Jean, and now this cover of Cher's Believe from Adam Lambert. But I think now I'm going to move away from the American Idol world and dive into the punk world for a bit. Now I know what you're thinking. This is an episode of slow and mellow covers. Where would punk fit into this category? And I'm going to take it a step further, because not only am I talking punk here, I'm talking ska punk. And I had to pause there for a minute, because I'm sure you're thinking, come on, Brian, there's no such thing as a ska punk ballad out there. Yes, there is. During the COVID lockdowns of 2020, a lot of artists were putting out quarantine covers. Hell, even I made one, getting together with 20-something friends and fellow musicians to do a version of Tom Petty's Learning to Fly. But one of the more popular ones that was released, at least in the punk world, was by an artist that was known for his own punk band, as well as being a member of the band he covered. Does that ring a bell with anyone? Now that I said that in kind of a romper room fashion, I can't hear you if you're answering me. But that said, MXPX, Mike Herrera, bassist and singer for that group, also plays bass in Goldfinger. And during the lockdowns of 2020, he released an acoustic cover of Goldfinger's Superman, which, if you're a fan of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtracks, I'm sure you know that. And if you're a fan of Goldfinger, it's one of their most iconic hits, if not the most iconic hit for the band. The original is fast, upbeat, energetic. Mike Herrera stripped it down to an acoustic guitar and his vocals and slowed it down. Now, I'll say this. Goldfinger came out when I was in my teens, and it's a song I listen to this day, but a lot during my teenage years and my early 20s. And it hit me a certain way. Hearing Mike Herrera sing this song acoustically, slowed down, in my mid-40s, with children of my own that are now, just ironically, in fact, teenagers, hit completely different. It went from a song that instantly brought me joy to a song that made me focus on the lyrics in a way that I had never heard it before. And it goes from this song that feels like an anthem, and it still is, acoustic or not, but it's so much more reflective. It completely changes the meaning of the song, where it's almost this looking back at your youth through the lyrics, as if he was kind of flipping through a photo album as he was singing it. And there's something about that really elevates the original track on a pedestal, because I never listened to it that way. And somehow Mike Herrera heard a ballad in there. And his version is released. It is available on streaming. And there's something about it that every time I hear it, it makes the hair on my arm stand up. And it makes me, I don't want to say yearn, because I'm very happy where I am in my mid-40s. I'm very happy where I am with my family and my children. But it brings back this nostalgic feeling for when I was just a stupid teenager or a stupid 20-something-year-old doing crazy things, thinking I was invincible. If you want to even use the lyrics as an example, pretending I'm a Superman. Because if you think about it, when you look back at your teens and 20s and you think about all the stupid shit you did back then, we all thought we were invincible at one point. And I feel like that's what the song captured during that era. But when you listen to it now through Mike's version that came out in 2020, knowing what you know now, it's a totally different experience. And being I'm on that ska kick, I feel like the way I'm going to close out the first half of this Mellow covers playlist is to stay in the reggae vibe, only genre and gender flipped for another artist. Sometimes when you see a cover song listed on a playlist or somebody tells you about it and they just tell you the name of the artist and the song they're covering, it almost doesn't make sense. It almost makes you wonder, how's that going to work? And when I heard that Kacey Musgraves was covering Bob Marley and the Wailers' Three Little Birds, I immediately raised an eyebrow. And I'm not going to lie, I thought that's not going to work. Now, mind you, this is coming from a fan of both Bob Marley and Kacey Musgraves. But one of the reasons I love cover songs the way I do is because anytime I do raise an eyebrow like that, I love being proven wrong. And she proved me wrong within the first few notes of this beautiful, heartfelt, whimsical rendition of Three Little Birds. Now, the original makes you want to get up and kind of dance. And I don't know, I feel like I've gone to see many a jam bands. And in between sets, I've heard this song played a million times. And I've seen people with hula hoops dancing around. And it gives you that kind of jammy, relaxed, maybe a little recreational chemistry going on, depending on if it's legal in your state or not, kind of vibe. But Kacey's version almost feels like a song you would hear in the background of a nursery when your child was taking a nap. That's the way I describe this version. It's sweet and peaceful and innocent and calming. And it's something that just lowers your blood pressure and still makes you feel as good as the original. It's playing with multiple emotions. And the first time I was finished listening to the song, I immediately had to start it over a second time just to confirm that I had heard what I thought I had just heard. And I am here to tell you that Kacey's version of Three Little Birds is absolutely perfect. The original song by Bob Marley and the Wailers is a masterpiece. And covering a masterpiece involves an immediate setup for failure with every single fan of the original. The same way that Heart stepped up on that Kennedy Center stage and tried to perform Stairway to Heaven, I guarantee, whether they admit it or not, there were thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that first heard those opening notes of that version of Stairway to Heaven and said, "You can't cover this," only to be proven wrong and have their minds blown. And judging by the hundreds of millions of views that video has on YouTube, says it all. I get the same feeling from Kacey Musgraves' version of Three Little Birds. And if you haven't heard it, I hope you do as well when you listen over on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com, because that, my friends, is the first half of this Mellow covers playlist, which kicked off with Tori Amos's cover of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, followed up by Chris Cornell's cover of Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, Adam Lambert's cover of Cher's Believe, Mike Herrera's cover of Goldfinger's Superman, and Kacey Musgraves' cover of Bob Marley and the Wailers' Three Little Birds. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs I've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now we're going to start with the second half, and every now and then a topic comes up where I know I'm going to double dip a song, meaning pull from an episode that I've done before and talk about it again. And there is no way I am getting through a slowed down Mellow covers episode and not bringing up, which I've probably now mentioned on the Blackberry Smoke episode, the Tom Petty episode, and the best unplugged songs, 10 acoustic versions that reinvent the original episode. Yes, I am going with Blackberry Smoke's take of You Got Lucky, which was originally recorded by Tom Petty, featuring the incredible Amanda Shires on violin. Charlie Starr does such a great version of Tom Petty, and they've done several Tom Petty covers over the years. They mixed You Don't Know How It Feels into their live rendition of Sleeping Dogs. They've covered Listen to Her Heart from the Jam in the Van series. And then there's this stripped down version of You Got Lucky, just to name a few. There's more. They've definitely done more. Just the way they did with the Rolling Stones' Stoned EP, I would absolutely be on board for Blackberry Smoke doing an entire Tom Petty's covers EP. Let me just say that now, because there's something that the band brings to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers music that just works. And this version of You Got Lucky is so different than the original. It's my case in point. Because you're taking a song that everybody's familiar with and flipping it on its side and giving them a version they've never heard before. And if you fail at that, any fan of the original might think less of you as an artist. That might be pushing it a little far, but maybe a nicer way of putting it is you might lose the room with that one. However, Blackberry Smoke just knows how to take a song and make it both a nod to the original as well as a Blackberry Smoke song. And that's what happens on this version. But since I've talked about this song so many times on the show before, I'm sure there's a few of you out there going, all right, Brian, we've heard it. We know you like this one. So I'm not going to say anything more about this version other than please go back and check it out. And if you want to hear more about the song, check out the episode I did with Paul Jackson of Blackberry Smoke back in the archives. That one was a lot of fun. But moving on from that, being I've planted that Tom Petty seed in everybody's head, I'm going to go with an artist that has covered Tom Petty a lot over the years. As I know, back in the 90s, you'd get those bootleg live CDs. Or I'm sorry. As I make quote mark fingers in the air, import CDs from the record stores before they were illegal. You know, none of us knew any better. We just saw them in the band's section and grabbed them. And Pearl Jam had a ton of them at the time. And one of them included Eddie Vedder doing a slowed down acoustic version of Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down. However, the band never really released it officially as a studio single. So I'm not going to go with that, but it did plant the seed for Tom Petty in my mind. And more recently, Eddie Vedder did a cover for a television show called The Bear. And that is a stripped down version of the English Beats Save It for Later. Now, if you're a Pearl Jam fan, they also have used Save It for Later mixed into Better Man when they play it live. However, that's the full rocking version of the song because they add it in at the end when the band is jamming. So that's not stripped down in any way, shape, or form. But the version that Eddie did for The Bear reminds me of the version that Pete Townsend did a long time ago, but then also covered on the deluxe edition CD of White City, a Novel. And I'll add Pete Townsend's version of this song on the episode page as well, so you could check that out. But Pete Townsend's cover, pacing-wise, is a little more aligned with the English Beats original. And Eddie Vedder slowed his version down even more, which I think, like a lot of the versions I've talked about tonight, just draw your attention to the lyrics more. And Pete Townsend's version does that already because it is stripped down. So you're not hearing all the other elements to kind of take your focus away from the lyrics. So Pete's version is a home run regardless. I mean, look, anytime a member of The Who covers your song, what kind of a blessing more do you need as an artist? But that being said, Eddie Vedder's slowed down even more just to borrow a term I used at the beginning of the episode, makes it more of an emotional gut punch. And they're both incredible versions, which speaks volumes to the English Beat's original, which might get lost in that new wave kind of 80s sound. Even though the English Beat was a ska band, this song definitely hits more of the pop new wave 80s sound versus the stuff you'd hear on I Just Can't Stop It, Twist and Crawl, Mirror in the Bathroom, etc., etc. Once again, this is an example, and I've talked about this on a lot of my covers episodes, but this is a real 101 example of a version of a song that you could play back to back with the original and feel like you've just listened to two completely different songs. Even though the lyrics are the same and the melody is the same, the vibe is so different that you get two completely different experiences. Part of that is the arrangement. Part of that is the differences tonally from the vocal perspective of Eddie Vedder versus Dave Wakeling. And then the last part is the performance. And I can listen to the English Beat's Save It for Later, followed by Eddie Vedder's Save It for Later, and it feels like I had two completely different songs back to back. Now, obviously, I'd mentioned Pete Townshend's version. If you play Pete Townshend's version and Eddie Vedder's version of the song back to back, there's a lot more in common. But I think if you do listen to those back to back, you'll hear what I'm talking about when I say just that touch that Eddie Vedder slows it down makes the jump from the original feel that much larger. And it's not by much, but I feel like the leap from the English Beat to Pete Townshend isn't as big as the leap from the English Beat to Eddie Vedder, which is why I went with that version. But being I've got the 1980s in my mind with the English Beat now, I want to talk about a song that I brought up as a bonus track on the Best Unplugged songs, 10 acoustic songs that reinvent the original, but I didn't give it its just due in a full playlist, and I want to remedy that right now. When Evanescence covered Bananarama's Cruel Summer, also done during the pandemic, but released as a bonus track on the Target edition of The Bitter Truth. That's on CD only, but you can find it on YouTube. Sorry, streaming. I mean, sure, you have the original and Ace of Base's 90s cover, which is pretty close tonally and vibe-wise to the original. Evanescence's version is a +1 for physical media as far as I'm concerned, because this version completely strips the original of its upbeat dance vibe and brings the cruel to Cruel Summer. When you pay attention to the lyrics of this song, it makes you listen to the original in a different way. This version is haunting. This version is emotional. I mean, let's be honest, this version is Evanescence. If you told me this was just a brand new Evanescence song, I would believe you. Even though in the back of my mind, I knew you were lying because I know the original, but I digress. Evanescence's version, again, I've used this term on this episode more than once, and I'm going to keep using it, makes the hair on my arm stand up. Is this better than the original? I think in a lot of cases tonight, it's debatable. And the fact that you can even debate it says all that needs to be said about it. Because most times you hear a cover and a lot of people go, oh, that's good. It's not as good as the original, but it's good. And a lot of the songs I've talked about tonight, I don't know if I could say it's not as good as the original because it's so unique. It's a different experience. And that different experience makes it stand out on its own. Remember, the original from Bananarama has the three voices singing in tandem, whereas Evanescence is just Amy Lee. So just in that regard alone, the delivery of the vocals feels so unique. And you're drawn once again to the lyrics. When you're bopping your head and dancing to the original, just listen to the first verse. Hot summer streets and the pavements are burning, I sit around, trying to smile, but the air is so heavy and dry. Strange voices are saying, what did they say? Things I can't understand. It's too close for comfort. This heat has got right out of hand. When you're up and dancing, those lyrics say one thing. When it's stripped down to a piano and you're focusing on it, gives the song a completely different emotional impact. Which is exactly what I'm going for in this episode. Thus, Evanescence's cover of Bananarama's Cruel Summer had to make the cut. And with that, I'm going to go from one cruel summer to another cruel summer. That being Teddy Swims' remake of Taylor Swift's Cruel Summer. From his BBC One live lounge performance, which is similar to Australia's Triple J's Like a Version series, there is so much cover song gold to be found in these series. I wish a station in the US would do something similar to this and have it catch on the way Triple J and BBC Radio 1's live lounges have just on YouTube alone for the rest of the world, let alone the stations in their respective countries. Now, I'm going to start by saying Cruel Summer is my favorite Taylor Swift song. My girls were of the age where I was part of Swiftie mania, whether I wanted to be or not. It was all I heard coming out of two rooms in my house simultaneously, different songs at the same time. It was all about Taylor Swift for a really long hot minute there. And while they still listen to her now, they've moved on to other styles of music and other genres and other artists, but there's still a lot of love in this house for Taylor Swift. And Cruel Summer was the one song that I latched onto that I was really like, that one I like a lot. So much so that I did a full episode based on 6 different cover versions of that song, which if you haven't heard it, it's over on myweeklymixtape.com. Just search Taylor Swift and you'll find that episode. A lot of different unique takes on the song, including this version from Teddy Swims, which transforms an upbeat Jack Antonoff produced pop song into a slowed down, emotional R&B cover. Something he's done with a ton of songs, including Blinding Lights by The Weeknd, Use Somebody by Kings of Leon, You're Still the One by Shania Twain, and this Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift. This is another instance where the cover, as far as I'm concerned, is just as good as the original. 2 completely different vibes. You can play the songs back to back and get 2 totally unique experiences. Now, I am certain most Swifties out there will disagree with me on the fact that I say it's just as good as the original. They will say nobody's topping Taylor's version, and I respect that. When it's your favorite artist of all time, I understand. But I ask each of you Taylor Swift fans to look inside your heart and listen to Teddy Swims' version and tell me that there's not a love and respect in this song that you can at least admire from a fan perspective, which in my humble opinion comes across in his version 100 times over. But I would be lying if I didn't acknowledge that fans of said artist might feel differently. And if that's the case, I do want to hear from you. This is all about a discussion. myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. Hit me up on social media at myweeklymixtape. That's what this show is about. These are all my subjective opinions, and I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I expect there to be disagreement and dialogue and discussion. That's part of the fun of all this. Music is art. It's not politics or religion. And some people do get passionate about the art that they love. But deep down inside, every art fan knows that there are no right or wrong answers here. It's all gray area. And I love exploring the gray with you guys each and every week here on the show. But I am at my last song of the night for this Mellow Covers playlist. And this is a newer one. I discovered this late in 2025. And it made such an impact on me, it made my top cover songs of 2025, which is an episode I dropped back on Christmas Day of 2025. So you can go back in the archives and check that out. 10 amazing cover songs that came out throughout 2025. A lot of great stuff there. But this one is one that I have a feeling I'm going to be listening to years from now on my Mellow Covers playlist. Because yes, folks, I also have this playlist on my phone with many other songs that I'm not even going to get to tonight, because I feel like this is one I can hit up time and time again and revisit more songs with everybody. But for my last one tonight, I discovered this song watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I was familiar with Calum Scott, but I was not aware of the fact that he covered Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody as a duet ballad. On paper, similar to what I said about Kacey Musgraves covering Bob Marley, it's one of those songs that you say, huh, well, a male artist doing a ballad version of a huge Whitney Houston dance hit? Convince me. And all it took was the minute and change that NBC gave him before they cut to a commercial to make me realize I had to dive into my phone, pull up Apple Music, and look up the full song. And it's from his 2025 album, Alvin Noir, which, if you haven't heard it, is just a great pop album, start to finish. But this cover to me steals the show. And what I love about it is it's not just a cover. So there is going to be a slight asterisk on this song because Whitney Houston is involved in the song. Unfortunately, with the use of AI in music over the last several years, a lot of people assumed when this song came out that this was an AI version of Whitney Houston. And I'm here to calm everybody's fears and say that not only is it not AI, Calum got full permission from Whitney's estate to use the original recording's vocal track. So given the fact that the Whitney Houston estate blessed this version, means they're hearing at least part of what I'm hearing when I hear this cover. Because for decades, I thought of this as an upbeat dance song. And Calum heard a ballad in there. And when you take the original vocals and you put it behind a slow piano, there is a ballad there. So this might be, like I said on the 2025 Cover Songs episode, a tribute more than a complete cover. But as far as I'm concerned, it's so powerful because not only do they go back and forth with the lead vocals, they harmonize the song in a way that makes it completely unique from the original. As far as I'm concerned, this has to make the list. Because it takes a song that you would normally dance, let's say at a wedding, where everybody would be up on the dance floor having a great time. When you strip it down to its core, there's a first dance song there. And to me, that is special. That is unique. And that is the perfect way to cap off this Mellow Covers playlist tonight, which, for the quote-unquote side B, I kicked off with Blackberry Smoke featuring Amanda Shire's cover of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' You Got Lucky, followed up by Eddie Vedder's cover of the English Beats' Save It for Later, Evanescence's cover of Bananarama's Cruel Summer, followed by Teddy Swim's cover of Taylor Swift's Cruel Summer. So 2 songs, 2 unique Cruel Summer experiences, with the cherry on top being Calum Scott featuring Whitney Houston's cover or tribute, depending on how you want to define it, of Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs I've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, normally, this is where I would wrap things up for the evening, but I do have a bonus cut I want to talk about tonight. So hopefully you guys didn't log off of the episode when I gave the plug of where you can hear the songs, because you're not going to want to miss this one. Because back in 2012, pop punk band Patent Pending released an album called Spring Break 99. So yes, once again, I've got you sitting there thinking, Brian, why would a pop punk song make a Mellow Covers playlist? Well, on that EP is a piano ballad cover that, well, let's just say sums up when it's just one of those days. Yes, that's right. Patent Pending did a piano ballad cover of Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff. Now, I didn't include it on the actual episode because there is a bit of a novelty aspect to this one. That being said, I do have it on my Mellow covers playlist, as well as all of my cover songs playlists for that matter, because when I have my cover songs playlist on in the car and this comes up, it always gets a puzzled, followed by laugh out loud reaction as to what they're actually hearing. And it is such a fun song to have mixed in to your cover songs playlist because it's completely unexpected. When you hear the piano, you are not expecting the lyrics of Fred Durst to follow. And it is done with an obvious respect and love of the original because the rest of the EP features I Want It That Way, originally by the Backstreet Boys, Every Morning, originally by Sugar Ray, My Own Worst Enemy, originally by Lit, and All Star, originally by Smash Mouth. So highly suggest checking out this really fun EP of cover songs. But if you want to really floor somebody, consider this your hidden CD track of tonight's episode. Be sure to check out Patent Pending's cover of Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys found at least one or two songs to add to your respective cover song playlists, and maybe this inspires you to start your own Mellow cover songs playlists. And if you do, I want to hear from you. Hit me up at myweeklymixtape@gmail.com, at myweeklymixtape on all the social media haunts. Use the contact page at myweeklymixtape.com, or last but not least, join the Mixtaper community at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. It's free to join, and there's other tiers there if you'd like to support the show a little bit extra, which is always appreciated, but like always, never expected. I want to hear your favorite Mellow cover songs, as well as any future playlist ideas you would like to hear me cover here on My Weekly Mixtape. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, please leave a 5-star review, leave a comment about the episode, drop a thumbs up, do all the things. That helps me spread the word about My Weekly Mixtape to other fellow music fans. And the most important thing you can do, tell a friend, post about an episode you enjoyed on your social medias, maybe share some of the posts I've made on social media. That helps me more than I could ever explain because, as you know, algorithms. And without that support, it's really hard to make an impact on social media and have new people discover the show. So I sincerely appreciate everybody who is helping me spread the word about My Weekly Mixtape, as I am loving getting on mic and talking music with you each and every week. Once again, my name is Brian Colburn. This has been My Weekly Mixtape, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.